Let's get into it. The thought that someone could be spending several hours to commute to Tokyo and the same time back every day frightened me. No matter how heavy the work was that the mine was, it was at least close to the hotel where we lived. Kagami was sitting next to me and seemed completely detached from reality. I in turn was so tired I couldn't concentrate on anything. Then I remembered, why were we going back to Tokyo? Why what? What have you been hiding from me? She remained silent and I had no energy left to be angry. Do you not respect me at all? What makes you say that? You're hiding something. Do you not trust or are you afraid that I wouldn't handle the truth or what? I'm always honest with you after all. Not that I had much to hide even if I wanted to. And this is the treatment I get in response. The worst part is that I don't even know what's going on. But it's so important that you're risking our relationship for it. There's no need to be so dramatic. Dramatic? I laughed genuinely. And here I thought we should be treating Kobayashi Corporation more than seriously. Kagami sighed and lowered her head. Everyone person has some personal things. She barely managed to pick up the words and clearly the conversation wasn't easy for her. Personal space, you know, I'm not trying to invade yours. What personal space can there be here? You know, in prison, your personal space is at best a cot meter and a half by one. They sleep in futons in Japanese prisons. You're gonna correct me for some reason. It doesn't matter, that's even worse. Do you not feel sorry for me at all? I'm coming with you and I have absolutely no idea what to be prepared for. Come on, put yourself in my shoes. You didn't like it when I didn't tell you about Himitsu. Fine. This was about to peek over the horizon, the sky in the east lighting up with all the shades of pink, red, and yellow. Meeting the dawn after a sleepless night is completely different from waking up early. In the first case, you feel as if you're stuck in the past. The entire world prepares for the new day, awakens from sleep, and faces the sun, rested and refreshed. Meanwhile, you yawn and desperately try to keep your eyes open, surprised by the fact that the night had passed by so quickly. If you need to share a secret with me before I fall asleep, you better hurry. I've never told you about my mother. She began in a tone that would make you think she was giving a boring lecture. She died from cancer, but before that, we'd been living in Shiriken, a pretty decent, comfortable life. It's often considered polite among Japanese to react with some short cues during the conversation, thus indicating they are interested in what the other side is saying. But I kept quiet and listening to her carefully. And I'd like to say my mom achieved everything on her own, but she was Kobayashi Jun's daughter. What? What? I understood the meaning of each separate word, but I couldn't quite link them together in my head, make them form a unit of information. When he was young, he had an affair with a maid, and of course, an illegitimate child would be jeopardized his career. I wasn't supposed to know about it, but when my mother was dying, she decided to tell me the truth. How was I supposed to react to this? Perhaps if I had been in Kagami's place, I wouldn't have spoken about this either. So what are you gonna do? I'm tired of running away and hiding. If he cares so much about one of his granddaughters, he ought to show some respect to the other. Well then. And he, I mean, Kobayashi Jun, does he know? Mom told me he did. We hadn't been captured while waiting at the mailbox. Had they been allowed freely to leave Tokyo? I suddenly recalled a plethora of other situations when we'd gotten lucky. So it seemed that the old Kobayashi was protecting his second granddaughter after all, in his own way. This is too unexpected. I'll need time to digest something like that. Well, you do that and I'll go to sleep. Kagami put her head on my shoulders and closed her eyes. A person's greatest fear is the unknown, and their greatest desire is to control. Wait. We want to control the world around us, to clearly indicate our place in it. We seek control over our relationships with other people, and even those people themselves. We want to know our future, but we're frightened even to take the simplest actions to alter it. Humans didn't evolve to live in the world of absolute reality. We came up with the ideas of paradise, hell, reincarnation to create the illusion of higher meaning. I do not believe that. Every complex system strives to reach an equilibrium point, and so does a person. Meanwhile, the uncertainty principle of quantum mechanics, that is the part of the foundation of the world, as a consequence, a random chaotic nature of our existence doesn't let us accomplish that. By entering new, albeit certain variables into the system, we simplify the process of understanding it with our limited human mind. They say the stupider a person is, the more they believe in conspiracy theories. Indeed, it's much easier to shift the responsibility for the future of the world in general, and one's own destiny in particular, to the secret global government of Masons and lizard people, than all mistakes and problems that inevitably accompany each of us on our path of life can be explained by the actions of a certain agent, whoever it might be, not just the person themselves. It's scary to know that everything doesn't happen according to some clear, even if sinister plan, but only thanks to the actions of people like you. Nobody in their right mind would take control of a nuclear reactor without having the required knowledge and experience. Humans evolved to trust their kinsmen, and I don't like reading that. It goes against my personal beliefs a lot. Who would have guessed that a simple affair Kobayashi-Jun had so many years ago would lead to such an outcome? It hasn't been long since we left Tokyo, but when I walked out of the platform of the capital's railway system, it seemed to me the city had changed. Maybe it's because it got colder than before. Of course, in this part of Japan, winters weren't as severe as Russia, so it'll be far more or less the same for the next few months. Maybe excluding a few rare frosts. We reached my district by the subway. Naturally, I wasn't going to go back home, but Kagome desperately wanted to see her grandfather. So we're in Tokyo again, what next? I have to save my dad. She came closer and looked me in the eyes pleadingly. Nico-san, I tried to live on thinking it was all over, that my father was gone. I clung on to you, my feelings for you, but it's not right. Even if it hadn't been for your red-haired friend, they would have found us sooner or later anyway. We can't hide from Kobayashi Corporation anywhere. Yesterday you talked about our children. Do you want our children to grow up in constant fear? I had nothing to say against her heartfelt monologue. This time, Kyosuke had reported that Moriyuki-san was doing well, but of course, she wasn't satisfied with that. My phone was likely tapped, but Kagome remained adamant. She called her grandfather from a telephone box. Do you remember the place we met when I was little? It was something like a little cipher that only the two of them knew. Do you really think that Moriyuki soon won't be followed, even if he is? If Kobayashi didn't ever wanted to hurt me, he'd have every opportunity and plenty of time to do so. Why didn't you talk to him when you found out? He wasn't burning with the desire to contact me himself, even when he knew we were related. He knew how my mom had suffered. It seemed strange to me even then. I could understand his situation, even when Mom died. When I really needed help. Of course, it would have been easy to accuse Iwamura of envy. How come Ellie had it all, and she had nothing? But there was a clear realization in my mind that in Kagome's position, I would have felt the same. Even after her mother, Kobayashi-Jun's own daughter, died, he refused to act. It was no wonder that Kagome hated not only him, but everyone associated with him. Although Ellie, of course, was blameless, so I just don't want to talk about it. Alright. We were meeting our grandfather by the waterfront near their burned-down restaurant. By the time, I'd already given up trying to apply any logic to the corporation's actions or lack thereof, so I'd given up on looking over my shoulder all the time. Who would have thought? What is it? I've always hated this salty air, the constant smell of fish, but now I feel... nostalgia? Yeah, I guess it is nostalgia. The last thing I want to remember is the stench of fish. Moriyuki-san was already waiting for us. When they hated each other, I stood aside feeling awkward. Would it be good to tell him Kagome and I were a thing? Are you well? You seem to have lost some weight. Growing up, then getting old. A person basically comes full circle and in a sense becomes a child again. Watching their reunion, I involuntarily smiled like a natural, kind smile that comes to your face when you watch small children. I had to work a lot, Grandpa, but we were doing fine. I don't mind. In my experience, working in a restaurant helped a lot too. Nikolai, I'm very, very grateful that you've been taking care of my granddaughter. Then he gave me a low bow. No, it's fine, don't. I felt awkward. How have you been? Pretty well. Thank goodness, Kyosuke couldn't help me out a lot. He looked at me apologetically and smiled. Here, take this. He handed Kagome a pretty weighty bundle. What? No, I can't accept this. Though after buying that yukata, we could definitely use some money. I didn't know how much Tokyo hotels cost, but they'd obviously be more expensive than a room in a mining village hundreds of kilometers away from the capital. Take it. I whispered quietly, but Kagome immediately turned to me and exclaimed, "How could we do that?" Nikolai is right, you two could use the money. He changed his approach and handed the package over to me. I quickly put it in my pocket, trying to ignore Kagome's angry look. Where did you get so much money? I remembered I had a deposit in the bank. There's no joy in getting old. You forget everything. But we can't keep hiding forever. We return to Tokyo too. I think it's high time for me to clear up with things with Kobayashi Jun and get my dad back. We've never discussed this, but Mom... She suddenly went quiet and cast a quick glance at me as if looking for so I've told Nikolai. Suddenly Kagome laughed. How could I hide it from him after everything we've been through? Grandpa, you know my mother was really Kobayashi Jun's daughter, right? It's clear he had no idea what Kagome was talking about. So you didn't? Kagome-san, what are you talking about? You know, son... You do realize that Shinji and your mother hadn't always been on good terms. I knew Yuno's mother were a little, but I had no idea who her father was, and Shinji didn't talk much about his family life. That voice hit him hard, so he threw himself into his work. Sorry to interrupt, but the old man and his granddaughter turned to me with the same expression of discontent in their eyes I had been so familiar with lately. It doesn't seem like Kobayashi Jun is particularly bothered by having illegitimate children otherwise. Or he would have dealt with the problem long ago. Is that what you wanted to say, Nico-san? I didn't respond, but averted my gaze in embarrassment. But Kagome-chan, what are you gonna do next? Where are you gonna live? I'll call you myself tomorrow, at more or less the same time. Moriyuki-san froze for a moment, then shifted his gaze to me. Bowed deeply, not super deeply this time. I'm counting on you. Wow. I whistled in surprise. It was a solid roll of large bills. Don't you want to give them to me? No. Let's consider it payment for my services. What services? My services, you know. Kagome was about to express her indignation, but said nothing in the end. Alright, it's gonna get dark soon. We gotta find a safe place to sleep. The cheap Tokyo hotel I chose didn't look much different from the one we'd been living in yesterday. Yeah, it looked newer, but mostly followed by the same budget-friendly style. Maybe we could have got a room somewhere fancy with Moriyuki-san's money. They weren't as likely to look for us there. Besides, I want to enjoy a little luxury before death. Savings fun. So, what made you choose this room? I wasn't even thinking about that. Fine, first I need to change. Didn't indeed stand out. Yukata isn't something you should wear daily. Yeah, of course. What are you waiting for? What am I waiting for? You've got the money. Right, sorry. Komi went to his clothing store by herself. I just asked her not to go too far from the hotel. Meanwhile, I had to think things through. I hadn't stopped Kagome from coming to Tokyo, but I couldn't let her go alone. But what were we supposed to do next? Obviously, she can no longer fight her desire to save her father no matter what. But after that failed attempt at blackmail, we have no other ways to influence the corporation. And to be frank, I'd added more and more with each passing day that Akira was still alive. I didn't know what Kagome used to wear before when she was living with her mother, but she more or less bought the same clothes she'd been wearing. A pair of jeans and a simple sweater. At least she wouldn't stand out in a crowd. But it was already dark when she returned. What took you so long? I was worried. Nikolai? I am a woman, you know. Yeah, right. Kagome threw a bag at me, the yukata falling out of it, and threw herself on the bed. I waited for her to calm down. Maybe now you'll tell me your plan? As if I was being forced to resolve one of the Millennium Challenges. I, a simple-minded, straight C student. I seem to have hit an impenetrable wall. If you have one, of course. Do you think I'm as reckless as you are, Nikolai? I think you shouldn't forget that by kidnapping Ellie, you made the old man choose which of his granddaughters matters more to him. He made his choice long ago. Exactly my point. So, you want to say I dropped everything, came back to Tokyo without having a thought of what I'll be doing here? Well, we had a good reason to drop everything. Deep down, she must have been sure Kobayashi Jun wouldn't hurt her. I wanted to believe that when we were hiding the village, she'd been thinking of my safety first. All we've really done so far is exchange one hotel for another. This one closer to the Kobayashi Corporation's office. If you really don't know what to do next, there's nothing wrong with that. You can talk to me. If we think through it together, we'll definitely come up with something. Nikolai, if you have nothing to say, it's better to say nothing. You're acting like it's my fault. Isn't it? Who decided I shouldn't know your redhead friend was going to that festival? I told you, Mitsu said she wouldn't go. Himitsu said, huh? He's more important to you, her or me. Kagome, please don't start this again. What are you looking for her? I loudly clicked my tongue, putting all my frustration into the sound. I'm not keeping you here, Nikolai. Enough already. I shouted, no longer being able to deal with her unprovoked attacks. Surprisingly enough, the whole time we'd lived in the village, we never had a serious fight. I couldn't even recall any small ones. It only took 12 hours in Tokyo for Kagome to start treating me like a public enemy. What situation? Kagome sighed at last, finally turning me through the blanket off. No longer happy I came into your life? You probably preferred to stay with your Himitsu and not have any to do with any of these extra problems. And you only slept with me because there's no one better around. I was about to get offended and object, but then I realized there was some truth to her words. Meeting her really had put an end to my steady, peaceful, even boring life. It made me lose Himitsu's love and our friendship. I could persuade myself all I wanted that it wasn't true, but most importantly, what had I got in return? You know, maybe you're right, but we always find and lose something in life. I'm really glad I met you and fell in love with you, even if my life changed because of it. And I don't want to go back to what I used to have. I want to move forward together. I'm just worried it might get us killed, that's all. And I really want you to understand that and not hide anything from me so we can overcome difficulties together, even if they seem impossible. Nikolai. Tears swelled in Kagome's eyes. I didn't mean that at all, I just don't want you to get hurt because of me. Overcome by emotion, I walked to her, hugged her, and stroked her hair. I understand. I really don't know what to do next, and I'm afraid to admit it even to myself. She was sobbing. I understand. We'll figure this all out somehow. And again. Thank goodness it skips that. 30/10/1987. Lately, I was too haunted by the feeling of helplessness. I didn't know what to do next, literally. It's not that I was unable to choose from a few different options, or that I doubted which one was best. Even after kidnapping Ellie, Kagome hadn't managed to get her father released, and the fact that Kobayashi-jun was her grandfather didn't change much. Perhaps she was really in less danger compared to me, but that only made me feel more powerless. My love for Kagome felt nothing like the feelings I had for Catherine. I would wake up and smell the scent of her hair. And now we've been living together for that long, but it was already hard for me to imagine that it could one day end, especially so soon. There was no point in panicking right away. Who knew why she had stepped out? The sun had only begun to rise above the horizon. I tossed and turned in bed, yawned and eventually got up. I was about to go clean up and brush my teeth when Kagome returned. However, her grim expression made me refrain from a kiss. Something happened? No. Why do you think that? Where have you been? Just wanted to unwind. Unwind. I repeated, trying to figure out what she was thinking. But Kagome was unreadable. I'm sorry, I forgot it was time for breakfast. It's alright, no worries. Good then, I'll go get us something. It's just the money? Oh, right. Clearly much more was needed for a normal breakfast. Something seemed to have changed in her overnight, and while she was out buying food, I was spying into my own thoughts, trying to understand what exactly, to no avail though. Eventually she came back with a bag of snacks and a cup of sodas. Not that I expect a feast, but normally she cooked for herself instead of buying stuff from vending machines. Anything wrong? No, everything's fine. Wait in silence. I avoided looking at her while trying to figure out what I'd done wrong this time. What are your plans for the day? My plans? What are you? For some reason I thought we had a few problems to deal with. Oh, yeah, of course. It's a pity you've given up. I haven't given up. I knew coming back to Tokyo was a bad idea. What, so rescuing my father is a bad idea, you think? Well, what are you doing to rescue him? I'm 100% with you on that, but so far... We're sitting in this crummy hotel, eating this, and you're acting like it should be this way. Did we really have to come back to Tokyo for this? Calm down, Kagome said coldly. In truth, I was more worried about her indifference than anything else. It seemed like after the last night something changed, and I was the one to blame for it. As if Kagome no longer saw a future for our relationship. But I didn't know how to express it clearly without shouting and swearing. You know, I never felt like I was second fiddle before, I mean. You kidnapped Ellie, and I was presented with a fair accompli. You returned to Tokyo and again made a fate accompli. I'm not used to being led around like this. Fine, that's not even the main problem. If there's something you're thinking, share it with me. Otherwise it's fatalism, apathy, or whatever you want to call it. And I don't really think you don't care. You're just hiding it from me for some reason. Kagome finally raised her eyes to me, and I saw weariness in them that I seemed to have come from somewhere. Then we heard muted shouts from behind a wall, a male and female voice. They were quarreling, soundproofing between rooms, leaving much to be desired. Do you want us to end up like that? I smiled and looked at Kagome, expecting a reaction. Huh, I can't even get angry at you properly. Get angry at me for what? Sorry for shouting at you. No, sorry for behaving like that. I guess I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, did I? I was tempted to keep asking questions, but restrained myself. Peace then? Peace. She shook my hand. Hey, that's the guy from, I can't, Ace Attorney, yeah. Objection! That's so neat. That's pretty neat. Although, discussing plans had already almost brought us to blows, so I try not to think out loud. Where did you go on dates with that American girl? On dates I don't even know. What, you don't want to go there with me? It's not that, it's just not the most appropriate moment for that, Kagome. Well, yeah, that's obvious. If we can't come up with anything, then what's the point in hiding in one place and waiting for them to find us? What if we don't get another chance? I stopped and looked at Kagome. She looked into my eyes and I felt so intense I couldn't resist any longer. Let's go. Amusement park would probably the last place they'd be looking for us. Why'd you bring me here exactly? Kagome asked with surprise. That's what you wanted? Alright, There weren't as many people here as I'd expected, and that made me feel a little tense. It's always easier to go unnoticed in a crowd. I've really underestimated the length of this game. Like, by a lot. Relax already. Nikolai. Kagome noticed my condition. I stopped and looked around. Do you want some candy floss? I don't like candy floss. Why? Because it's like, well, it feels like insulation. Ugh, disgusting. Alright. I giggled and immediately felt myself calming down. What would you usually do here? Have you ever been to an amusement park? No. Kagome replied even too innocently and sincerely. Well, for example, there's the Ferris wheel. I waved in the direction of the wheel. Come on, that looks like something for kids. Are you afraid of heights? Not at all. Alright, alright. I decided not to torture her any longer. There's a ghost house. That's boring. Did you want to shoot at targets from a rifle? I don't know how. Well, finally something you can't do. I flung my arms in the air and dropped onto a beach nearby. People go on dates to have fun. Aren't we having fun? Gummy was doing everything wrong. I really began to doubt whether she knew how to spend time with someone she loved apart from fighting for each other's lives. If you don't like it here, no I do. It's very peaceful here. A clown walked by, some blew his horn right in my face. Clowns. I could never understand why they show them to children. Maybe we've come here too early, when everything's over. Yeah, when everything's over. I pulled Kagome to me and kissed her gently. Suddenly, it felt as if we were the only people alive in a world of the dead. As if we were in a zombie movie and had barricaded ourselves in a basement against the horde of the undead. Or we're standing on the cliff and waiting in resignation for the monsters to throw us into the abyss. This feeling of hopelessness was fueling my desire to achieve mental unity with Kagome. I wanted us to be close, not only physically but also spiritually. That seemed to be the only way I could find some sort of integrity and feel safe. And maybe we should go away. Away? I mean from Tokyo. Let's return to that village. They won't look for us there again. And let them hold my father hostage? I really want to help your father, but we should think about ourselves too, about our life and future. Yeah, the song, you need a bit of fresh air, I sure do. I won't be able to live with the guilt of just leaving him behind. But I involuntarily grimaced and turned away, pretending to look at something in the distance. Yomi's feelings were understandable, and it only hurt our relationship if I tried to argue her down. But I couldn't just wait and sit for who knows what, so I stood up and paced around in front of the beach. You don't have to go through all this with me. Just, no way. You can't jump from a ship into the sea. Is that how it goes? I tried to recall a Japanese proverb. I'm already grateful you're trying. That's something I could never understand. What's the point of participating if the other team wins? You know, we have a saying, you can't put thank you on bread like butter. I can't keep myself warm at night with the thought that I tried. But I can keep you warm at night. Kagome smiled cutely without any hint of vulgarity. Unfortunately, that won't be enough to save your father. I was tempted to chastise Kagome for talking a lot but doing nothing. Personally, it didn't seem like something shameful to me to retreat. At least temporarily given an untenable situation. Plus, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't experience the tragedy of the situation like she did. It wasn't my father we were talking about. But if we take a step back to take 2 steps forward. Kagome jumped off the beach and clung on to me. Tomorrow we'll go to the corporation building and tell him that I know everything. He can't just brush aside his own blood. You know it won't work. Then we can go to the police and we can tell the journalist that he had an affair. Kagome, enough. Us suffering won't help your father. On the contrary, if we don't upset Kobayashi-jun over time, he might come to his senses and release him. After all, he's his son-in-law. Suddenly thought he could have well found out Ellie earlier than where she had been. And if that was the case, have you ever read any books by Lem? Who? What does that have to do with anything? Lem is the best when it comes to describing an extraterrestrial mind. In most sci-fi other offers, aliens behave very human-like, guided by our logic and morals. But that can't be the case. It'd be absurd for evolution to follow the same path on different planets. Wait, I'm almost done talking. I'm trying to say Kobayashi-jun's like an alien to us, and we're trying to predict his actions based on our primitive thinking. Basically, any second, he might do something no one could ever expect. And that was fundamentally unverifiable, and thus could be entirely wrong. Do you really think he'll simply let my father go? I just want to say that we can't exclude the possibility. Someday. I mumbled under my breath and ran after her. Kagome was quick, walking in the direction of our hotel. What's wrong now? I cut up and started walking alongside her. You weren't helping at all, you just keep talking nonsense. I don't know what to do. Are you happy now? I just wanted to support you if that's a crime. It's not a crime. What then? I want to be alone for now. I understand you have it hard and I respect your personal space, but this really isn't the time for it. We have to stay together and you know that yourself. We reached the hotel without saying a word. She clearly didn't want to talk, and I simply didn't know what else I could say. It seemed that just yesterday she had been full of hope, and now she was drowning in black melancholy. No matter how I tried, I couldn't find I was the one to blame for any of this. October would be over in a day and a half. We were walking through Tokyo, drowning in autumn, and I was looking at the setting sun, feeling it becoming more and more like winter. And it wasn't even the fact that it was getting colder in the city. The sun was lighting the earth at a different angle. The shadows were getting longer and life was becoming slower and more idle. I suddenly wanted to hibernate for a half a year as to wake up in spring and joyfully discover that Kobayashi Corporation no longer cared about us. Kagome's father had been released and nothing stood between me and Kagome. However, some doubts crawled on with those thoughts. Were we even a good match for each other? You can say all you want that opposites attract, but north remains north and south remains south. One second we felt good together. She had been replaced by an evil twin sister. We were walking next to each other, but at the same time we're a world apart. Kagome didn't make dinner. She didn't do anything at all and just spent the entire evening staring out the window. It was the sort of thing that would make me howl with boredom in 10 minutes flat, but Kagome seemed to be okay with it. Shall we talk, maybe? Fine. I won't spin up the old tape again. Let's just sit around and do nothing, but at least talk to me. If I don't know what I've done wrong, I can't fix it. Maybe by calling her name played its role. Kagome finally turned to me. Nobody's at fault here. And why does it seem you don't really think that? She sighed and turned back to the window. You've been living in Japan for a while now. You must be understanding that people of the East are far more accepting of the inevitability of fate. Fate. I smirked, stood up, and walked around the room like a tiger yet to accept his cage. I never believed in fate. You have a right not to. And more importantly, what do you mean by that? What is our fate? Nobody can know that beforehand. I don't like hearing that from you. I'd expect it from anyone but you. Why is that? Because you've always fought against your circumstances. And now you sound as if you've resigned yourself to them. Well, maybe I have. I had nothing to say and I just paced faster. A few minutes passed like that. Fine. But then why don't you want to leave? Since you've resigned yourself. Does it really matter where you wait your destiny? Then it makes even less sense. If you really care, you could have met me halfway. Fate is full of surprises. She suddenly made a little smile. Even if it is, it doesn't matter where you wait for those surprises. Take Kobayashi-kun. Jun. A sudden thought came to my mind. There's no way he believed in fate when he was young and getting ahead by effort alone. What do you mean effort? Well, he founded Kobayashi Corporation and he didn't found anything. She interrupted me with clear disdain. He just married well and joined a wealthy family. It happens in Japan, you know. And it wasn't even about the fact that I revealed an inconvenient truth about the almighty head of the corporation, but rather that I could be so mistaken about this man. It seemed at first glance that he was the person that had achieved everything with his own strength. That's why your mother? Yes. She replied briefly and looked away. He couldn't acknowledge his affair with a maid, not to mention an illegitimate child. He had lost everything. Isn't this fate, Nikolai? Something rumbled outside in the distance. Thunderstorm at the end of October? Don't you think that's strange? Are you making fun of me? Not at all, it really is strange. What's strange is the way you're acting. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm a sensitive person, have pity on me. I'm not the one you should be asking for mercy. Oh, enough already. I stomped and kicked the bed angrily, which made the bouncy mattress jump into the air while the blankets and pillows fell on the floor. If you wanted a limit on my patience, then congrats, here it is. You happy now? I was. After everything we'd gone through, ditching Kagome after one fight would be cowardice. Even if I didn't know why she was acting like this. If you don't want to talk, I'm going to bed. I tossed and turned for a while. I didn't know for how long, but she wasn't returning. Did she decide to make it an onsen trip in there? The toilet and bathroom in the hotel were quite modest, albeit clean, and it was hard for me to imagine what Kagome could be doing there so long. Finally, I stood up, ran to the hallway and bumped into her. What is it? Where have you been for so long? Washing myself? Go to sleep, it's late. (31/10/1987) We were climbing a low hill with sparse, stumpy trees. The sheath of my heavy sword hit against my legs, leaving deep, never-healing wounds on my skin. The sun was blazing, and my salty sweat ate at my eyes. My head was spinning, and yet again I felt like I was about to faint. Just like I've had a few hours ago, and a few hours before that. But each time I found the strength to move on, only hoping I'd be able to make another 2 or 3 steps and then come what may. The commander said we'd rest in a couple miles, but he always said that while in reality, we'd to walk from dawn to dusk. How were we supposed to fight barbarians after that? Weren't we just waiting for the battle to death but marching straight towards it? Leaving our homes and thousands of leagues behind us. Never been afraid of battles with the enemy, but the endless wait made the image grotesquely foreboding. I left my parents and her siblings at home. We spent half our lives serving the Emperor, at best. We'd a much higher chance of dying in battle, or ending up uselessly maimed, making those around us feel nothing but pity and disgust than returning home safe. I guess it wasn't a life I wanted as a child. I was lucky enough to be born a patrician, so I didn't get to choose my own fate. Night, a break of fire. It was nice to finally take the sandals off. Is this a dream? Yep, just gonna let it read. This really is a lot of dialogue. I snapped awake in a cold sweat, jumped off of my bed, desperately gasping for air. It felt like I was choking, that someone had drained all the oxygen out of the room and only an asphyxiating gas was getting into my lungs. The sun was rising over Tokyo. Only then did I realize that was nothing but a nightmare. But it felt more real than any dream I'd had in my 18 years alive. Maybe it was a memory from a previous life, where I'd been a Roman legionnaire who died somewhere in the forest of northern Europe. No, that's nonsense. I smirked under my breath, but my heart was still racing, reminding me that the theory was no worse than the other. Besides, the bed was empty. Kagami had already woken up. Huh. But you can laugh at the supernatural all you want until you face it yourself. I walked out to the street and bought a bun and soda from the vending machine. Then walked around the hotel hoping to meet Kagome, but to no avail. On Saturday morning, there were fewer people on the street than on weekdays, and that scared me a little. Every person I met seemed to be watching me suspiciously as if I looked wrong. Time passed, but she hadn't returned. I paced back and forth across the room worried. Only then did I notice. The glass ball was standing right in the middle of the table. How did she manage to bring it with her? Kagome only had a small bag. I discovered a piece of paper under there. I can't take it anymore. You're in danger. Every second you spend with me, I'll handle everything myself. Please try to forget me. I don't think it'll be too difficult. I tore my eyes away from the note, turned my head a few times and blinked. No, it wasn't another dream. I read the note again, but still couldn't grasp the meaning of it. The words refused to form sentences, carrying only shreds of meaning. If it hadn't been Kagome writing this, I would have thought it would have been a prank. I'd get all scared, start running around the hotel panicking. And then a door would open, and there'd she's standing there with a snide smirk on her face. But I knew that wouldn't happen. It clearly wasn't a spontaneous decision, and that snow globe. Was it an accident she left it there or a sign, a symbol? I grabbed the snow globe and swung as hard as I could, ready to break it against the wall. But then I froze and let my hand drop limply by my side. It could be the only thing I ever have left of her. It was too early to despair. I didn't know what she was going to do, but I at least knew where she'd go. No matter what happened in the relationship, she'd never abandon her grandfather. I ran out of the hotel and sprinted in the direction of my house. Running there was quicker than taking a train. My house didn't seem to have changed at all. I groped the keys in my pocket for tense fingers. Ryuki-san? Apparently the old man hadn't been bothering to clean, though I could hardly blame him. There was no one in the kitchen either, or in any of the other rooms. How could that be? Kyokusei told me he was visiting him regularly. I sank powerlessly onto the floor next to Kokatsu, following an old habit, not passing my conscious mind and completely switched on the TV. Then I remembered Kyosuke's place. My sarcasm sounded evil, and I grew angry with every word. But can you imagine the dilemma I'm facing? It turns out he isn't here. The fridge could starve a cockroach to death. Everything's covered in a meter thick of dust. If I didn't know you'd been visiting regularly, I'd think that. What would I think, Yosuke? Calm down. Is there a reason? Calm down. Is there a reason I don't have to worry? You see, they said it'd be better for you. For both of you, for Iwamura-san too. Who's they? I asked coldly, not even particularly surprised. Some people. I don't know for sure. I told you whatever they asked me to on the phone. I swear, I don't want to deceive you, but you see, it all worked out fine in the end. Worked out? I scoffed and hung up. What a friend. Of course I had no right to blame Kyosuke. The corporation could be threatening him and his family. In the end, everyone places the safety of themselves and their loved ones above everything else. So what's going on then? Kobayashi-jun had known where we were hiding all along? Then why the theatrics with the hotel raid? But all those questions seemingly deeply peripheral. The most important thing was I lost the girl I loved. And I'd lost her in one of the worst ways possible. She left me. Had she stopped believing I'd be able to protect her, or convinced herself that she needed to break up for the sake of my safety? The second option sounded even worse. How many times had I made that mistake? And Kagome was much more persistent than me. If she decided something, it was that way for a lifetime. Suddenly I was overcome by primal fear. I felt like I hadn't just lost someone I loved, but that my very existence was in danger. Not because of Kobayashi-jun and his corporation, no. It was something formless with no mass or shape. Something soulless, non-existent, the epitome of nothingness. The primal fear for my nightmare. I started pacing around the kitchen. It was much more spacier than the hotel room, but the monotonous circular motion would hardly solve my problems. Then someone rang the doorbell. It sounded somewhat casual and brief, as if I hadn't left the house for a month. Was it a mailman? A neighbor salesman? Is it Irina? But I didn't expect it to be her. Irina stood at the entrance with the usual expression of arrogant superiority. What is it, Nikolai? Surprised? I am. Irina sat at the table and casually crossed her legs. Pretty lonely at your place, huh? As usual. Is that so? Well, maybe you're right. Why are you here? Seems like kidnapping Kobayashi's granddaughter didn't work out well, so you chose the other one instead. You know that too? We only found out recently while looking into the strange behavior of Kobayashi Corporation regarding you and your girlfriend. But you didn't know yet that Kagome had only left this morning, so they probably didn't know we were no longer together. What? But you won't get anything from Kagome. Where is she, by the way? What does it matter? You need to make her demands of Kobayashi-jun, right? If that's the case, don't bother. He cares more about Ellie than her. Why do you think so badly of me? What, do you want to help us? Perhaps. She smiles shyly. Then what do you need it for? How unusual. I see you're all business today. She slowly turned her head from side to side, as if looking around and not searching for anything in particular. Where is she, if I may ask? She went shopping. Then I left for her here. Kagome knows nothing. She's never even met him. Is that so? It is. If I want to. If I just want to live with her in Tokyo, without constant surveillance from the corporation or whatever else means parties. How can you help me with that? Not all our desires are destined to come true. It's time for you to worry about yourself, don't you think? What do you mean? You must have realized that it isn't safe for you to stay in this country. I virtually boiled up with anger inside, but managed to remain calm on the surface with titanic effort. I wasn't ready to let her go yet, and she definitely wasn't ready to leave Japan. I presumed that to find myself someone safe I'd have to work for you. I realize it's useless to appeal to your sense of patriotism, so let's say you'll work for me personally. So what's your personal offer? Oh, for now, just wait for your girlfriend to finish her shopping. That'll take a while. I don't know where she is right now, and I don't think she'll be back. Even if she did return, as I said, she's of no use to you. Be my guest, I'm in no hurry. You got a whole day ahead, and then another one, and another one after that. How untimely. What is it? Then the urges from under your belt threaten my plans. Well, excuse me. I smirked. Where is she then? It was clear that Irina was aggravated, but Soviet intelligence agency clearly wasn't going to give up so easily. I'd like to know as well, I'm telling you. Let's wait for her together. You're behaving boldly for someone in your position. For someone who's got nothing to lose. You can't even imagine how many reasons you can cling to life when death appears near. Is that a threat? This conversation isn't over. You know where to find me. Now, in addition to all my other problems, I had the KGB on me again. I'd already managed to forget their ever-vigilant checkists and, to be honest, had been more than happy to. So then, even if a miracle happened and she changed her mind and decided to return to, now she couldn't. To be honest, I didn't really understand what Irina wanted from her. Was she planning to hold her hostage? To blackmail Kobayashi-jun? He hadn't been open to negotiations, even for the sake of his legitimate granddaughter. Not to reveal his secrets to spies from a hostile country. Although, KGB Major Irina Mostova could have had a much more complicated plan that I couldn't understand yet. The evening was drawing near. The air outside seemed to have been frozen solid, like in the paintings 19th century Russian artists I'd seen in Tretyakov Gallery when I was a child. By now, it'd be snowing in my hometown. But in Tokyo, snow was a rare occasion even in winter. Irina had talked about returning to the motherland as something obvious, but I only had vague childhood memories from my time in the USSR. Yeah, they were warm and steeped in maternal love, but they were still just the bits of a past life that itself seemed to me nothing more than a bedtime story. But I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. The telephone was still collecting dust on its stand in the hallway, obediently waiting for the moment I'd need it. I remember when as a child, it often seemed to me that inanimate objects had feelings too. They were happy to be of use and help the humans, and disappointed if they were forgotten or worse, became obsolete or broken. How did the telephone feel having spent a whole month in an empty house? Well, now's its time to shine. Clearly, calling the Kobayashi state to try to talk to Ellie wasn't the best idea. But it had been long enough by now. They may be letting her answer the phone. I didn't get a response immediately. Hello, can I talk to Ellie-san? Most likely, Kagami had gone to talk to Kobayashi-jun in the morning. Hello. Ellie's voice sounded tired. Hey, Snick, please don't hang up. I really need your help and have nowhere else to turn to. I expected some sort of reaction, but none followed. Hello? You're calling me for everything you've done? Finally came your cold reply. I know I have no right to do this. I understand I even have the right to ask you for forgiveness. You're the only person who can help me. What happened? Kagami, Iwamura, some dangerous people are after her, and I have reasons to think that she was at your grandfather's this morning. Handle your psycho yourself, Ellie shouted and hung up. Had I expected a different result? It's easier to estimate negative outcomes in percentages. For example, you have a 1% risk of dying of cancer. But nobody thinks about how you have an infinitely small chance of winning the lottery. We just go out and buy a ticket. However, to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity. I grabbed the receiver and dialed Kyosuke. Are you sleeping already? What about your night anime? Here is my place. Nick, it's late already. Don't you think you owe me after everything you've done? Fine. And we'll end things off here. I figured the story was getting close to being over, but then it had a whole nother plot twist. Awesome, I guess. If you want to play the story for yourself and do the other routes, if you're not keeping up with mine necessarily, yeah, I definitely recommend it. Pretty good so far. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. As always, goodbye.